Daryl Glenn. So at this time, I want to introduce El Paso County Sheriff Terry Maketa.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, again, thank you for being here. I think we have quite a bit of news to give. Some of it is pretty good. I think our fire efforts today were somewhat encouraging, but like any tragedy, the worst case scenario that we could imagine, or one of the worst case scenarios we could imagine, is we recently, in the last few hours, did recover the remains of 2 individuals. Let me give a little history on this so that we don't have any confusion. We had a missing persons report come in a couple days ago. This morning, we were very satisfied that we located those 2 individuals. They are safe. However, we had another missing person report come in almost around the same time. We began conducting a search, and around 2 o'clock this afternoon, between 2 and 2:30, we were able to identify the remains of 1 individual, and an hour later, a second individual. We do have witnesses that spoke to these 2 people. One at around 4:20, and they said that they could see a glow to the west. They were packing their personal belongings, trying to get out. At 5 o'clock, there was another phone conversation. The person that they were speaking with said he could hear popping and cracking in the background, and they advised they are leaving right now. The area where they were located is heavily wooded. It's a narrow driveway in with an L off of it, and just trying to paint you a visual so you can understand the surroundings and the circumstances. It's in a very, what I would consider, high temperature burned area where the fire was obviously crowned and coming through the tops of the trees. Obviously now we have a criminal investigation going on since we have 2 deceased parties. We have the coroner on scene. We will be working toward identification. Obviously, following that, we'll make notifications, and following that, we'll make the information public. You know, we were truly hoping that we could get from day to day without coming across news like this. I can tell you early on, we expected it to be much more tragic. Nonetheless, the fact that we have 2 individuals that lost their life is sad, and my heart, and I know the heart of this community, goes out to the family and friends they leave behind. Almost makes talking about the acreage and all that irrelevant, but I think we have a responsibility to keep the community informed. So I'll go through some basic things, some numbers here, and then certainly want to welcome Rich Harvey and let him get into some of the strategies that they are employing to contain the fire. We are up to 15,700 acres that have been affected or within the burn area. If you look at the map here, we expanded some mandatory evacuation to the left of 83 in the pinkish red area. Those obviously are areas most adjacent to active fire. We have approximately 38,000 people who have been evacuated or affected by the evacuation, and 13,000 homes. We also are placing a significant amount of resources. We now have dedicated full-time resources to continue with the assessment. Over the last 24 hours, 36 hours, we've had to pull people off that task, get them out into the evacuation arena. With the support from our military and the Guard, we're now able to dedicate 12. I want to say we are working tirelessly to get as accurate information out to the public. I know that our Joint Information Center, my office, the Incident Command Center, is getting numerous calls from citizens saying my street isn't on there, my number isn't on there, it's in the area. We are working to verify, cross-reference, and validate, and I want you to know that we have not let up on that effort, and it will intensify, but we're starting in those areas that we know we have the most damage, and in some cases, especially at night, it's difficult to identify addresses, when there's no reference, as in mailboxes or anything like that. So just be patient. I promise we're doing everything we can for the citizens that are displaced. I know how it is to want to know one way or the other. So we will continue those efforts through the night. I get asked a lot about the square miles. The fire impacted area is about 24-25 square miles. And obviously, if you look at the printout on the map here, it is a significantly large evac or at least pre-evacuation area. So I think that pretty much sums it up. Again, I think we have some things to celebrate today, but as the business day comes to a close, it certainly was tragic news that we were all hoping we could avoid. So Jeff, we'll go ahead and bring Rich Harvey up. He's our Type 1 Incident Commander. Certainly should not be a stranger to this community. He's really learning our geography, and I'm certainly happy he's on board and that we drew the luck of bringing him back to our community to work with all the people he's already used to working with. It's all yours, Rich.
Good evening. For the record, it's Rich Harvey, and I'm the Incident Commander for Great Basin Incident Management Team Number 2, which is a Type 1 team. We took control of this fire in cooperation with the El Paso County Sheriff and the Colorado Division of Fire Control, or Fire Prevention and Control, and a lot of the local fire districts that are represented by those two entities this morning at 0600. We've got about 750 firefighters and lots of aviation assets dedicated to this suppression effort. Today we focused on three areas. The first thing we wanted to do, and I'll step away to the map just to kind of give you a little bit of reference here, we wanted to make sure that this south end of the fire was contained. So this was one of our major areas of focus. This road here is Shoup Road, drops down here to Burgess Road, and then comes on up over on this side to Meridian. This whole section up to Brinkerhoff Road here looked really well today. Did not move much on us in any direction. There's this little slop over here that we've been dealing with, held today where we wanted to do. So one of the things I can tell you is that we're going to call containment on this fire at 5%. So not much progress. We've got a long ways to go, but given the weather forecast that we face today, the winds and that kind of stuff, we're happy with the progress that we made. We did get a few breaks. We had a plan in place that took advantage of those. This cloud cover, preventing some of the solar radiation, raising the relative humidity, gave us a little bit of a fighting chance. We took advantage of that. It's part of where the 5% containment come. The other area that we really focused a lot on was this finger that had headed north and kind of keeping this stuff in here from moving to the north. The fuel type out in here changes a little bit. It's a little bit more grass. And so we were a lot more effective in there than we have been in some of the timber stringers that we've been dealing with. I talked to the division soup out here today. He did not get a lot of movement. He did not make a lot of progress. He didn't lose a lot of ground. So we're gonna call that one a draw. Not a lot, not happening on either side. Draw across here. This was the area in here, down in here, that caused us the biggest problem. That's where you saw the smoke from today, and that's where we focused most of the aviation assets. The air tankers and the helicopters were working that area really, really hard. And like the sheriff mentioned, I'd like to stress the cooperation that's going on in the air. We have active duty military assets, we have National Guard assets, we have civilian aircraft in there, we have federal aircraft in there, and they are sharing that airspace effectively, safely, and efficiently. And we're real proud of the efforts those guys are putting on. The other thing I'd like to mention on cooperation, you know, the 750 firefighters, several of those are local. And a couple I'd like to really make sure we mention in here, this area, the Black Forest Fire Protection District, and I love his name, Chief Bob Harvey. His folks out there did a real good job helping us out in that area, and we very much appreciate it. The other area down here, Falcon Fire Protection District, and Chief Glenn Levy. Again, everywhere on this fire, all around, you have those local fire protection districts that are engaged with our forces, helping us know the terrain and helping us fight this fire. This area here, it moved a little bit, and I'm not going to get into trigger points or anything like that, but it did get to some areas that caused some concern, and I'll let other folks talk to that. But it didn't move far enough that we felt that it was a huge threat. Again, not quite a draw. We lost a little ground in there, but we're aware of it, and we have plans to come in tomorrow and deal with it. So that's kind of where I'd like to leave it. 5% containment, troops aggressively engaged from the air and the ground, high cooperation, a little bit of progress, and a plan to continue to do that in the future.
Good afternoon, Steve Bach. Last name is spelled B-A-C-H, Colorado Springs Mayor. Another sad day in the Pikes Peak region today. 2 lives lost from what I understand, and our hearts go out to their loved ones, and our thoughts and prayers are with all the people who have been hurt by this fire. I want to thank Sheriff Maketa for the tremendous leadership he's shown here, and all the other people, all the courageous people out here fighting this fire. You know, I was here a year ago with many of you on the Waldo Canyon fire. All the same first responder leaders and staffs are back here, and it's an amazing thing to watch as a layperson to see really the seamless, unified command. And I think that's a real testimony to everybody involved in this fire. And I want to say to the citizens of Colorado Springs that decisions to evacuate are difficult, and we take a very thoughtful approach. And to those of you that have been evacuated from part of Flying Horse this afternoon, we know that's very disruptive to you. We want to get you back in as soon as we can, and just hope we're doing the right thing by making sure you're safe. If I could, I'd like to ask Colorado Springs Police Chief Pete Carey just to add to that one comment on what we're doing up in Flying Horse right now.
Thanks, Mayor. Good afternoon. The evacuation of the northern part of Flying Horse Ranch went pretty well this afternoon. In about an hour's time, most of the residents had safely gotten out of the area. So I want to let you know, besides congestion and some pretty clogged roads for a few minutes, it went pretty well. We're going to keep a very close eye on that from here on out, as far as security patrols and being very, very vigilant about who comes in and who comes out. Based on the wind conditions and the unpredictability of the weather, we are not going to allow people to come back into the area tonight. First thing in the morning, we'll make a determination. If it's a little more stable, we'll ask for an escort service from our police officers to get people in to pick up needed items and things like that. We are also in discussions with the National Guard to help us out with some security and some traffic control points in the area. One last thing I want to mention is if you are somebody that lives in Flying Horse and you have some concerns about animals that are in your residence, the Humane Society is available to retrieve those pets. We will let them in to pick up your animals and pets, and they can be contacted at 473-1741. So if you have some concerns, please call the Humane Society and we'll coordinate with them. 473-1741. One last point is that UCCS has opened up a shelter for our evacuees, so if you need a shelter, UCCS is a place to go. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm El Paso County Commissioner Daryl Glenn, representing the northeast section of El Paso. I do want to briefly touch on 5 areas that have been areas of interest from my constituents. The first one is animal control. One of the things that we really want to do, and I want to thank my colleagues and a lot of our community partners, especially Jan McHugh Smith from the Humane Society, we want to try to create a centralized way to deal with our animal control issues. So what we have now at our Disaster Assistance Center, we have a Humane Society station there that is going to be the focal point for collecting information on people that want to volunteer. We've had a lot of people that have called that want to provide, for example, trailers for people that have horses, hay, those types of things. We want to have a central agency that can collect that information. We've also had people that need assistance. So again, I'm going to provide you with some contact information, but again, we have a place at the Disaster Assistance Center down at the Garden of the Gods area, 1675 on Garden of the Gods. The point of contact that we are going to use right now, his name is Blake Dwyer. That's Blake, B-L-A-K-E, Dwyer, D-W-Y-E-R. His phone number is area code 719-776-0725. His email address is Blake Dwyer, B-L-A-K-E, dwyer2@gmail.com. We also have an alternate phone number of 444-8301. What we are trying to do is put together a database to be able to provide real-time access to who can provide assistance with animal control and also who needs assistance with that. The second area I'd like to cover is we are creating a Black Forest Community Reentry Response Team. We are in the early planning stages of being able to work with community leaders within the Black Forest region on developing a plan for reentry when the time is available. So we will have more information as we do that, but I know that question is out there. We are in the early planning stages, and as soon as we have more information, we will provide that in future press conferences. With regard to some of the things that I personally observed, I want to make sure that my constituents understand that I've personally observed the Black Forest Community Center, the Pineries, and the School in the Woods. And as of right now, using the sheriff's words, right now they are in good condition, and we're just gonna, hope for good things. But right now, I have personally observed that they are in good condition. I especially want to thank some of the first responders with regard to the school. And I'm sure that District 20 and a lot of the community leaders will appreciate the fact that there were people that took extraordinary efforts. We had the security fire, a fire district that was out there. They had an engine, and they saved this school. And they really understood the fact that how much of a community asset this is. So I want to personally thank them on behalf of the community. Another thank you from this morning. We really reached out for some community leaders to help us purchase supply for our firefighters. King Soopers stepped up, and we were able to work with them and purchase the necessary material to be able to feed our firefighters, provide them with excellent sack lunches. So we want to thank them. And lastly, as far as the number of people that we've been able to help down at our center, we've helped 190 families right now. And if you have any concerns with regard to the air quality, we do have our public health department down there that can answer any questions that you have. But again, I want to thank everybody, ask you to be patient, and if you have any questions after the conference, I will stick around. Thank you again.
If I could just expand on what Commissioner Glenn brought up about the school in the woods. It was obviously he mentioned the security fire department. It was also an engine out of Boulder, Colorado. And those guys just decided they were going to take a stand and save that building. They had their backs against the building, and they fought the fire, pushed it back, dug a trench, and then they were staying there to make sure that school was no longer threatened. And I think those are the kind of independent decisions among two people who have probably never met each other, security fire and Boulder, and they decided, today we're going to win this little battle. And we're starting to see more of those wins throughout Black Forest, and I think that's very encouraging. And I'll tell you what, it was a proud moment for me to see those guys come together and just take command and decide they're not letting that school go. And I know that school holds value to the Black Forest community, so I thought that was such a positive thing in light of the other things that we were dealing with today. Another comment that I want to kind of plant the seed with is we have a tendency, and I think it's important that we have a 5% containment, a 10, a 20, a 50, and we want that magic number of 100. But that only means that we have formed a ring around that fire and that we have it controlled. It doesn't mean the fire's out. And so we don't want to create this false sense of 100% containment equates to extinguished. And I'll tell you, driving around again today, we're seeing a lot of hot spots within. They are trying to stop the growth of it, and then we'll start working our way in and trying to choke it out. But because of the type vegetation on the ground, as well as the needles and the duff that exists, we have a lot of hot spots. And so I just wanted to kind of remind people, I think we need to not only inform the public, but also make sure that we create these realities of what can be expected and what may not. When we reach 100% containment, unless we get more help from Mother Nature, we still have a lot of work to do in there. We'll still be retaining a lot of the assets that have been brought to us from other jurisdiction, including the federal government with the National Guard in Fort Carson, and even our Type 1 management team. So I just want to let you know that I felt like today was a great opportunity to turn a corner, and if it's a draw, that's a victory today, because we haven't had too many draws in the last couple days, so we're real excited about that. And what I'll do is turn it over to Lieutenant Kramer now, and he can moderate the questions.
As I mentioned, we'll take about 10 questions. What I'd like to do, if you wouldn't mind raising your hands if you had a question, and I'll try to get kind of equal representation around the ring of cameras, if you will, and I'll try to do my best to select the appropriate person to answer that question. We'll let them answer just that question, and then I'll come back to the mic and we'll move it on in that fashion, in fairness to the speakers and those who will be answering those questions, and in fairness to all of you to be able to hear the information that's coming out. Yes, sir, in the back there. The question is, do we have any updated number on the homes that are burned? I'll have Sheriff Maketa come back up and talk about that effort and what that update is like.
No, they're going through quite a review and vetting process to make sure we're as accurate as we can possibly be. I do not have any new numbers. I am very hopeful that we didn't lose any homes today. I'm optimistically hopeful, and that would be a huge victory. If we did lose any, it was very few. So I think we're taking some very positive steps. Again, as we get that information vetted, we go through a validation process, a comparison process. We'll be updating on that on the website, so just keep checking it periodically.
Do you have any more specifics in terms of when the wind is?
Yes, sir.
Somebody speak to the way that was going north much of the day, and now it's shifted to the east. Does that push the fire back on to itself, and can it help to have the wind shift that's going this direction?
The question basically is regarding some of the change in direction of winds, and could the change of direction help push the fire back on itself? Sounds like a kind of a tactical fire question. We'll have Incident Commander Rich Harvey address that.
I don't like wind, any direction. But I think the short answer to your question is yes. It can be beneficial, and it can also have negative consequences. Because those of you that have had the wind at your back all day now get it in your face. But it can help turn the fire back on itself as well. So shifting is sometimes good, sometimes bad. We did not have any reports today as the wind moved around that it caused us serious problems. But it's never really a good thing. If we had a choice, sustained wind from one direction is good. But we don't get a choice in this. We'll deal with it. We keep our firefighters primed for wind shifts. It's something that they look out for. We have weather people that will broadcast those shifts so that people are positioned to take advantage or to be protective, depending on whether they're receiving or sending the wind.
Yes, ma'am, down front.
I know the focus right now is on this firefight, but cause and origin still have to be on the mind. What is still on the table in terms of possibility?
Question surrounds cause and origin. Do we have any information regarding that? Have Sheriff Maketa address that investigative effort.
I don't have anything new to share as far as the investigation and the progress of it. I can tell you we're pretty narrowly focused on one spot as far as the point of origin. Obviously, that's where we're going to get our best clues. Once we get to a point where we can start collecting information, we will be coming forward with a hotline where we can start taking that information in. Obviously, if somebody knows something, they're familiar with the area, they witness something, we certainly want them to call our office and provide that they have information on it. But we're just not at a point where we could even start discussing it right now.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, the precise location is different, but what have people fighting this fire? What are you doing differently based on your experiences in Waldo Canyon? How is that informing the way you're fighting this fire?
Question surrounding what are our experiences in terms of fighting the Waldo Canyon fire? How do those experiences help us, or what does that change about how we fight this fire? I'll let either Incident Commander Rich Harvey address that, or even Sheriff Maketa. But in terms of lessons from Waldo Canyon, how do we change what we're doing here?
Well, I think that the best way to answer that is we learn something from every fire we go on. We learn something from every day that we're out there on the fire line. We learn something between 8 o'clock and 12 o'clock every day. We learn something every time the wind shifts. I mean, I think it's probably a combination of all that we take with us every time we go out on the line. I mean, Waldo Canyon was mentioned. We are very cognizant of what happened there, what the fuels were, what the fire behavior was, and we bring that forward with us. We get the same kind of weather briefings. Our firefighters are facing similar fuel types, similar energy release components, similar spotting distances, similar winds. So they're going to respond with what they've learned in their careers and from recent experiences. So that is a factor, but it's not the only factor in what we do. We base our actions on current expected fire weather forecasts. We base our actions on where we think we can have success. We base our actions on what assets we have available, work them in tandem to do the best job that we can. And so we learn every day to try and make it better out there on the line and do the best job that we can. You want to add anything?
Yeah, I think one thing that's very deserving of recognition, it is how quickly we were able to access both the heavy equipment when we're talking about dozers, water tankers, but equally, if not more important, is the access to the aircraft and how quickly they arrived. I was actually speaking to the mayor earlier as we were walking up here discussing how quickly we had those assets, and that wasn't by accident. That is the product of a lesson learned from Waldo Canyon and the support we're getting from Northern Command, General Jacoby, his chief of staff, as well as the National Guard unit and the full-time Fort Carson folks and their revised response plans, local response plans. So I would say that is probably the most glaring improvement. And as I have said many times, I've been with the Sheriff's Office now a long time, been around fires for a long time. That is the absolute quickest we've seen the aerial show that you have witnessed here in the last few days, and it is something. Quite frankly, it's amazing, and it's very welcome.
All the way on this side? Yes, ma'am. Questions just surrounding some additional details concerning the two people that are deceased. Where were they? Were they in a car, on foot, things of that nature? Sheriff Maketa will address that.
You know, as I described the scene, it was very heavily wooded. It was a dirt road with an L off of that, a longer driveway. It appears as though the individuals were in the garage. The car doors were open, as though they were loading or grabbing last-minute things, and all indications are from the evidence on scene that they were planning to depart very quickly. You know, I think it would be pretty appropriate to say when we get a fire and it's being carried by the winds and it can jump tree to tree, it can be very deadly and move very quickly. And that's why we preach and spend so much time on evacuations, and knowing how devastating these can be and having it so fresh in our minds from a year ago. I know it's something that in my almost regular conversations with Chief Carey and Chief Smith is we're not going to take chances because fires can move quickly. If you heard what I said, from 4:20 to 5 o'clock, the description was it's off to the west, we can see a glow, and at 5 o'clock, the person they're talking to hears popping and cracking. PM. Most likely the first day. Actually, it was the first day.
Daniel?
What are you doing to evacuate looters in such a big area? And have you had any reports of break-ins, either residential or vehicles?
Question is, what are the efforts that are ongoing to protect the evacuated area and, from looters and that type of activity? And have we fielded any reports of that type of activity ongoing, whether that concerns residential burglaries, things of that nature? I'll have Sheriff Maketa speak to that.
I was actually going to give that one to Rich Harvey and just see how he responded to it, but you know, we're starting to see some activity. As far as the efforts, I talked earlier, we have a lot of resources. CSPD, Monument, Palmer Lake, and the National Guard are manning checkpoints as well as doing random and active patrols. We have a lot of law enforcement in the area, but we're talking about a very large area. I think at this point I am familiar with one case where we actually had an alarm, and there may be criminal trespass to an auto. That has not been confirmed or verified, but I can assure you that we will continue to have a strong presence and enhanced presence, and that's all we can do, as well as any citizens in the surrounding area. I mean, it's a neighborhood watch. If you see something suspicious, call our dispatch center and let's get a law enforcement officer over there to confront whatever the person is doing. Don't just assume, oh, it's probably okay. Let's keep our eyes on this, and in a neighborhood watch fashion, or in a united effort, let's keep an eye on the property of those that don't have the opportunity to watch it themselves.
Karen? The question surrounds the firefighting effort for tonight, kind of what they expect, and with the weather conditions and changing winds, things of that nature, is there some kind of approach for tonight? So Incident Commander Rich Harvey.
Thank you. We do have a full night shift planned for tonight, and it's actually a stronger night shift that's been out there the last couple nights. And their primary mission is going to be to hold what we have, and then they're also going to be doing a lot of internal patrols. So, you know, we talk about the perimeter, but as Terry mentioned, there's a lot of islands and hot spots and stuff out in the middle, and we want to make sure that what we're doing at night, when you have the opportunity, it's a lot more visual. You can see the glows, you can see the flames and the embers. We can have those guys go in there and start the mop up. Even though mop up doesn't sound glorious, it's quite effective in making sure that what we have, we keep. And it positions us for tomorrow when we look at the weather forecast, which again is not a great weather forecast from a fire suppression standpoint. We're aware of that. So our strategy for tomorrow is much like today: protect what you've got, slowly extend that black line and get some containment going, and start to work on the areas where we can pinch it off up to the east and north there, and then this area here. Finger pointing, good job there. So we always want to build off of what we did during the day with the night shift. We want to use the night shift to position us for success for the day shift, and just for FYI, they overlap. So we don't have the night shift go home before the day shift shows up. So there's always this constant overlap. They share the areas or concerns. It's passed on to the day shift and to hopefully position them for success the following morning.
We're going to have that be the last question. We'll kind of conclude here. However, the subject matter experts, the folks you see behind me, will remain for a few moments. If you have some one-on-one camera shots or interviews that you need to try to do, please be respectful of their time, as there is a lot of work certainly to do in regards to the firefighting effort. Thank you very much.